Welcome, everybody, to our BNI Talks webinar. My name is Steve Tenuzzo, your host, and today I've got my personal business coach, someone I've been working with for a really long time now. 2009 we started, Nancy. In Nancy Cantor's teachings, we've done a couple of books that we reviewed. We did first the E-Myth, which we did a webinar on not too long ago. And by the way, it is our most popular webinar, so you can look that up on our BNI Talks, BNI Team USA YouTube channel. And now we are, of course, doing Good to Great. And this is a whole other pretty exciting way of looking at your business. I'm curious to see where you think you fit in all of this. So I'm going to first turn it over to Nancy to give us a quick introduction of herself first.
Okay, so here I am. And I've been a business development coach for 30 years, which to me sounds a little scary, but I've been doing this for a long time. And I love working with small business owners and being able to help them really clarify their vision, their mission, their purpose, and to be able to fulfill it. So I've been doing that for a long time. I do individual work and I work with groups. I also run an empowerment community for women called the Dream Factory Community. And that is to empower women to take on their life, their work, and their world. And for that, I've developed my own curriculum, which I'm pretty excited about. And I've been leading that for 19 years. We're actually having a birthday party this year. So 19 years young, I say. And a former director. I was a director for 8 years at BNI and a member of BNI since 1998. And I'm part of Taking Care of Business, which is I'm very proud of. It's a great chapter, and it's been a pleasure to be part of that for probably it's been about 15, 16 years.
Yeah, long time.
Yeah, long time. And I've worked with Steve since 2009. That's another credit to me. So
absolutely, she put up with me that many years. That's pretty good.
Yes.
All right, so why don't we get into our topic today, which is Good to Great, and let's start with a little poll. I'm just curious because this book has been around for a long time now. So the question is, have you read Good to Great? And I thought the responses would be yes, I know it well. Yes, it's been a while and I need a refresher, or not yet. There are no wrong answers here, folks. And as we mentioned when we were promoting this, you do not need to have read the book. We're going to go through the primary principles of what's involved in this book. All right. So let's end the poll. That was a pretty easy one to answer. Here's the results. All right. So for the most part, most of you don't really know it, and that's okay. And then those of you who know it well, please feel free to chime in and give us your experiences as they come up. And those of you who need a refresher like I do, because it's been a while since I've read this one, this should be great. Okay. Nicole says that's why we're here. Crib notes. Absolutely.
We're doing our best. We're doing
Yep. All right. So, Nancy, I guess the best way to start would be to do a little overview of Good to Great.
Okay, so Good to Great was published in 2001. Jim Collins was a professor at Harvard. And excuse me, sorry. I have a member who's going to Harvard today for the new president. No, at Stanford. So at Stanford University. And he put a team together because he really wanted to study businesses that went from good to great. And that's what he did. It was a 10-year study. And it still could be in process. But the materials that they came together, that he put together, has enabled us to really look at what are those distinguishing characteristics that make for a great company. Because a lot of these great companies did not come from a great industry. It was what they applied that had them show up as great. So that's an overview. You're going to go, you have more slides on what the particular content is, correct?
No, this is it. We're done. See you all next week, everybody. No, joking.
We got that done.
Plenty more to come. All right, so let's start with this concept, which is kind of impressive. Level 5 leadership. I'm curious to see where everyone stands on this one.
Well, here's the thing, this goes through like the very basics, highly capable individual, contributing team member, competent manager, effective leader. And then the level 5 leader is really what they distinguished in this book, that it was really important. They would say like a level 4 leader, which sounds like it could be right there at the top, is somebody who's visionary, a lot of times charismatic. They're like the genius, that everybody is going to be underneath and support. And they found like that was not enough. They actually wanted a level 5 leader who encouraged really creative, intelligent people to work underneath them, and probably not even underneath them, but more in partnership. So, and they were humble, and they were not that bravado, the one that would make big decisions and bring a company off in a different direction. They were those steadfast, solid people that other people wanted to work with and were inspired by, and that their inspiration inspired the leaders. So it was a very co-creative environment, as opposed to a more egotistical kind of environment. Because what they found with the level 4 leaders, if they left, the company probably would fall apart, because everything depended on that. Now, I know, Steve, you had a good example of a level 5 leader. Do you remember?
In fact, I do.
Okay, what was that?
I was thinking about Apple. And when you think about Steve Jobs, who was like the face of the company for so many years, and as he was coming to the end of his life, he had to hand the company over to someone, and he chose Tim Cook, who was really his supply chain guy. And a lot of people were surprised because they didn't see him as the innovative type, the person who was really going to create all these amazing things that were so far created at Apple and kind of match that. And in a way, some people would argue to this day that it's kind of true, but what he did do was he took the company from a very successful company that was kind of on the rise to the most valuable company in the world, and doing it in a way that was kind of his own vision, but also, surrounding himself with all of those brilliant minds that he had that worked there to create this. So to me, I see him exactly as level 5 executive.
Yeah, he's not that charismatic guy. He's not going to come up with the next big, crazy idea. He was really good at staying the course and putting his own spin on that and allowing other people to do that as well. So that's really what distinguished level 5 leadership. And a lot of times when they're interviewed, they don't say, oh, yes, I'm the greatest. I've done the best job ever. But they talk about their team, about how their team really stepped in, and they have the best people. And that's why they are, the kind of company that goes from good to great. But they're that kind of humble and focused, but not that charismatic craziness that could take a company in a new or bad direction. This was very steady. And the other thing that I noticed in this chapter about level 5 leaders, they talked about people from the, like Abraham Lincoln. Like when Abraham Lincoln was elected president, he put together his team. A lot of them were his adversaries, people who didn't seem to like him very much, but they were strong and they had objectives and they were set. And he worked with them as a team, and he brought their strength to the forefront. And because of that, he was so successful, because he allowed that to happen. So it wasn't a lot of bravado. And I think they talk about bravado a lot, like with the level 4 could be bravado, but level 5 leadership is that humble, focused, kind of methodical, simple. Let's make it simple. And that's a lot of what you'll learn in the book, Good to Great.
It's time for another poll.
Oh boy.
This is a double poll because I don't want to, kill us with polls today, but I thought it would be good to get a little info here. So let me launch this next one. So which level leader are you right now? out of curiosity. Where do you think you are? You don't have to have an exact answer. And then there's a second question: how many people are in your business? Just out of curiosity.
Okay. Well, as people are doing this, I also want to say what we're going to be doing during this webinar is to apply. This also applies to small business. Good to Great is focused on corporations, but there's an element of it that can completely apply to small business. And if you think about level 5 leadership, being that kind of leader, whether it's just you or that you've got a few employees, that there's a way that you can be leading that brings out the best in others. And I think that's worth looking at.
All right, we're going to close this poll in about 5 seconds. So Nancy, this is a good question. And Nicholas says, is it okay to be a level 5 with only yourself?
Yes, I think that's completely awesome.
Yeah.
When I used to use the E-Myth a lot, and Ivan Meisner from BNI used the E-Myth, and they would specialize in having an org chart. And even if you are in all those positions in the org chart, you can see there's different accountabilities, and you can really look at, are you creating space? I know Ivan's intention was to move out of a lot of those spaces so, other people could come in. So I think as a level 5 leader, that would be something you would be looking at. Like, how do you bring other people in, or what are the characteristics of that part of the org chart that you would want to emulate? So I think this just begs the question, like, to get you thinking this way is a good thing.
It is, and I'm answering somebody. There we go. Okay, so if we look at the levels, it's kind of across the board here, which I appreciate, by the way, the honesty. Those of you who think you're at level 1, I get it. You got to start somewhere. And figuring this out. And I think, as you mentioned, Nancy, in the E-Myth, you work with all these other people. So you're wearing lots of hats if you're a solopreneur, but you're also dealing with your accountant and, your vendors and all those other people that you work with. So in a way, you've got your own team around you all the time.
You do. If you can look at it that way, you lead more than you think you do.
Yeah. Also, so we've got a third of the people on the webinar today who are solopreneurs, and everyone else is a little bit in between there. But we've got a few people at the over 50 and the over 100 people. So we have lots of professionals who work at big banks and organizations all around the world. So it's nice to have a nice full spectrum of different types of business people on today.
Okay. And I think one thing I would suggest, whenever I lead things, is come away from this with one insight, like one insight that you can move forward with. There's going to be a lot of information. Some of it might feel like it doesn't apply, but the more you can look to see, well, what does apply to you and what could you implement? I think that would be really helpful. Okay, so that's level 5 leadership.
All right. We did the poll.
We did the poll.
Now we're up to the bus.
Okay. So some of the examples that they gave in the book about who's on your bus, like they said, it's more important about who rather than what you're going to do. Like they gave an example of Hewlett Packard when those two entities came together, those two people, they had no idea what they were going to sell. All they knew is they wanted to work together. So they put themselves on the bus. So I think when you look to see as a leader, whether you're level 5 or not level 5, you look to see who are the people you want to work with, who are those key people. And, if you're a solo entrepreneur, you have an accountant, you might have a bookkeeper, you might have maybe somebody who does your marketing for you. You want to keep looking for the best people that you actually want to work with and who's a good fit. They also say, like, who should get off the bus? I know I'm working with somebody who's got a very large corporate job. And when she took over, she started to look at certain of the leadership team, particularly in the sales function. And she got very clear. They don't think how she thinks. They don't think from the bigger picture. So she's actually looking at, how do you take people off the bus? Maybe some people want to get off the bus or should get off the bus. So you start distinguishing like who are the main people who you should work with. So as a level 5 leader, not being that charismatic, like, oh, I'm in charge. Let me get a lot of people who will just yes me all the time. You want to get those innovative, creative, entrepreneurial people who share the same values. These are the kinds of things that you're looking for. And, some people even say, where do you put people on the bus? You want your innovative, creative, visionary people in the front and maybe more of the workers in the back of the bus, because you don't want, if you have problem solvers, all they're going to be doing is problem solving. You don't need that all the time. You need those visionaries who can fulfill on the mission and where you're going type of thing. So not only is who's on the bus, but where do you put them on the bus? And taking people off the bus when they should be taken off the bus. And a lot of times, especially with when we get into some of the other concepts, you'll find people don't want to stay. If they're not keyed in to the very specific way you want to work on your business, they're not going to stay. So they'll take themselves off the bus. So the whole point here is to gain clarity. The more you can be clear, the better it is for the people that you want around you. They'll be attracted to you, that clear vision, those values, that mission. They find themselves inside of the vision that you find yourself inside of. So it gets inspiring, and you don't have to motivate these people. That's the whole thing. You're not looking for people you need to motivate. You need to look for people who are motivated, and they're motivated by what you're up to.
All right, so that's the bus.
That's the bus, baby. Well, and here's the thing. This just makes sense. Like, as if you're designing anything, it's good to know the facts. Like with the poll, Steve, you would ask people some very specific facts. Well, it's good to know those facts. We don't want to like make things up. We don't want to pretend we're something that we're not. We want to know where we are starting. So let's see what Jim Collins says. You must maintain unwavering faith that you can and will prevail in the end, regardless of the difficulties. And at the same time, have the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever it might be. So I think in business, it's always like that. People need to run their numbers. Running your business by your numbers is not a bad idea. So you need to know where your numbers are at all time. Who's your ideal client? How do you reach that ideal client? Is your marketing on track? These are very entrepreneurial questions that people have, but you need to face where you are at the particular time. And there's more that I want to say about this as we move forward. So why don't we move forward with this? Okay, so this is the main concept, I would say. I love that fox, Steve. That's very cute.
Well, I was looking for something for you to tell the difference between the fox and the hedgehog, and this image came up. So
okay, good. So yeah, because this is the main concept that a lot of what they talk about in the book, it revolves around. So we've got the fox and the hedgehog. So the fox looks kind of crafty there and kind of, but it's got a lot of ideas, very creative. That's smart fox. But then you have the hedgehog, who's very simple and nice and wonderful. And the hedgehog really maybe has one big idea. And as an animal, it does one thing. Like if somebody tries to attack, it rolls up in a ball and puts all its spikes out so that nobody can attack it. And he's not, hedgehogs are not very vulnerable. So I think we've got a wonderful opportunity here to say, it seems like foxes would be the best bet. They'd strategize and get out of the difficult situation, but the hedgehog does something very simple, and it does the same thing all the time. And that's what Jim Collins discovered in this Good to Great book, is that if you have a hedgehog concept, which is based on the hedgehog, one simple big idea, then everything turns itself out. And if you can stay true to that, then you are going to go from good to great. So here are the 3 quadrants. What are you deeply passionate about? What can you be best at in the world? And what drives your economic engine? So in looking at that, what can you be best at in the world? You can also say, what could you not be best at in the world? It's not like, what do you aspire to be best at? It's like, what are you really best at? It's like your natural DNA of your company, that has you be best at a particular thing. You also look at, what are you passionate about? Not trying to get passionate about something, but you just are genuinely passionate about that. And then looking to see what drives your financial engine. And that's always similar to, money generated by X, like but per customer or per job, or, something pretty simple. And, in the book, they came up with 11 companies that went from good to great. And one of the examples in there is Walgreens. And and then they would have a comparison company, Eckhart in this particular case. And Walgreens hedgehog concept, best, most, kind of, they blended passion and best together, but best, most convenient drugstores with high profit per customer visit. So everything about what they did was about convenience and making sure when customers came in, and, they'd have more customers because it was more convenient, and that they would also have higher ticket items that people could be buying. So it increased the amount of, profit per customer visit. So they only created stores in most convenient locations. So in urban locations, they would bundle them together. They stayed only in cities where they could apply that concept. And if they found that they had a store that was successful, but it wasn't, and a more convenient location opened up, they would close it and put that store in that most convenient location. They were tried and true on this hedgehog concept. But they also did this thing, we want to increase, what people spend when they come in. That was their what drove their financial engine. So they added drive-through pharmacies. They were the first drugstore that had drive-through pharmacies. Then they added 1 hour photo developing. We know that that has gone by the wayside, but at that particular time, that greatly increased what people spent when they came in there. And it was very convenient. It was very close by. They didn't have to walk very far if they were in a city. And so everything worked for them. And they grossly outranked their competition, which was Eckhart. And they were kind of like the king of the deal. Like if it looked like a good thing, they would go for it. They were very foxy, weren't they? And so they would buy blocks of stores that came up because they were a good deal. And they, do that. But it wasn't based on a hedgehog concept. And I think that's the key element here. They took on home video market, which seems like might have been a good idea. And they bought American Home Video, but it didn't work, because it wasn't based on anything. It was more egotistical, like, let's do this. Let's try that. And you can remember those little ideas around the fox. It was like the foxy ideas. And then it turned into a $31 million loss. And so in 10 years, Walgreens net profits were $1 billion higher than Eckhart. And 20 years later, Eckhart didn't even exist anymore in the realm that it was in. So these hedgehog concepts really, really work. And, and I know you're not big corporations, but I think it's interesting to look like, I know I've had clients that have done some version of this. Like I had an HVAC company that, they put in systems and they did some maintenance and they did corporate. And what they started to find was like corporate was sucking the life out of them. They'd have to spend huge amount of money to get corporate projects going. They'd have to wait for other subcontractors to do things. And a lot of times it just didn't work out very well. So they made a big decision. Let's just stick with residential and let's focus on, putting the systems in, but then also the maintenance of those systems. And they kept true to that. And I'd have to say within a year's time, they increased their profitability by 60%. Right. So these kinds of things can have dramatic results within a small business. You keep it simple and you keep doing what you're doing and it works out over time. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, Nancy, you were going to ask to put in the chat of the hedgehog concept. What is something that you can be the best at?
Yes, what can you be the best at? That would be great to see.
Just throw it right there in the chat.
And I'll
Based
have
on what you do, what your business is, be interesting. And by the way, while you're doing that, this book was published first in October of 2001. So most of these case studies happened during the 90s, right? During that 10-year period. So if you're wondering why we're involving video stores and photo labs, that's why. Yeah. Well, here comes some answers right now. Customer experience, education, teaching.
building a team.
Yeah. Building wealth. Wow.
Relationships. Okay, great.
Nice. Big, small, right.
Yeah, and I think as I see these coming in, it's like it's not a bad question to say, what can you be best at?
Hmm.
And it could even be, based on the book, it could even be something you're not doing yet, but you see your potential and your innate skill set. And usually what you're best at can fit into what you're passionate about.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, good. I like that. Loving my customers. I think that's so nice. I like that. So I think it's good. So that's the hedgehog concept. And I have to say that is one of the key concepts in here, because and we are going to do a follow-up workshop on that, because I think it is so important. If you get that simplicity in, it can move your business forward. I know I had another client who was she had a bookkeeping business. And so she was, going on sales calls, educating people, they would either hire her for bookkeeping or not bookkeeping. And then she started to see what she could be best at, what she was passionate about is really driving being more of like CFO for hire kind of person. So, and then I coached her. I said, charge for those meetings. Don't have it be a sales call, have it be a setup meeting. So that's what she started to do. And then she had a 3-pronged program that they could register for that would include her services as a CFO for hire, plus the bookkeeping. She hired a bookkeeper to do the bookkeeping. And the next thing you know, her business tripled. It was, and I'm sure, I haven't worked with her for a while, but I'm sure it's even beyond that, because her services changed. She created this hedgehog concept that enabled people to relate to her in a completely different way, and had her spend her time in a completely different way and get paid for all the time that she spent, and provide even higher level services than what she was doing before. So I'm telling you, hedgehog concepts are the keys to the kingdom here. So, but that, I think we've covered that. What's our next step here, Steve? Culture
Oh,
of
too fast. Hold on. There we go.
Okay. So the whole point of the flywheel effect is that if you keep applying this hedgehog concept over time, consistently, what will happen is there will be momentum that grows. And that's really what we're aiming at here in terms of the flywheel, is that you start to see things moving because you focused in a particular way. When you get anxious, yeah, there we go. Steps forward consistent with the hedgehog concept. Accumulation of visible results. People line up energized by results, and flywheel builds momentum. And this is very different. Did you do the doom loop too, or no?
Not yet. You want it now?
Yeah, why don't we put it in there, just because I think it's a good contrast. Okay. Yeah. So if you have disappointing results, if you're trying to figure things out, if there's like you're looking for some strategy, it starts going downward. There's no buildup. It's reaction without understanding. And that's a big concept in this book, is that, we talked about the brutal facts. We talked about the hedgehog concept. There's a precision and preciseness of a real understanding of who you are and where your place is in the market. So if you're reacting without understanding, a little bit when we talked about Eckhart going and buying that home video, I know it's a long time ago, but they just went out and they bought it. Go, oh, this will solve something, because it was a reaction without deep understanding of who they were and what their business was. You know, a new direction, program leader, event, fad, acquisition. It gets crazy. Like somehow you're going to fix things. And then there's no buildup, there's no accumulated momentum. And then there's usually disappointing results. Like they lost 31 million, you know, at Eckhart. And it was like a downward spiral when Walgreens, which was just trying to be convenient and make sure people bought a lot of stuff when they came, that's pretty simple. But they were totally passionate about it. That's how they bought their new stores. That's how they designed their product line. It was so simple. And that is the thing that you look for. How do you make it simple? You're not always trying to decide. You're not always trying to get the next strategy. Like that is very foxy. And if you can start distinguishing fox from hedgehog, you're ahead of the game, because that puts you back in the kind of game where you can build momentum, you know, the flywheel, and keep things moving. And then what that does is it gives you something that people are inspired by. You don't have to worry about motivating your people. Your people will be motivated. Either that or they should get off the bus. It's not your job to create parties. I mean, you can create parties. Parties are very nice things. But, you know, the type of thing is that your business should be an inspiration in and of itself, and people feel privileged to be part of it. So,
All right. Just jump over here.
okay. Well, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more we could say about this, but, you know, I've been studying this book, and I would have to say the key element that I saw within this book that was something, you know, for small business owners that they could apply is creating a hedgehog concept. Now, in the book, they talk about it takes a while to create one, but I really do feel like you really encouraged me today when we said, what can you be best at? And you came up with things. Like it's not so foreign. People can say, this is what I can be best at. This is what I'm passionate about. And then we can look to see, you know, and how could that get translated into what's going to drive your financial engine. So I decided it would be an important thing. I'm big on application. I'm a teacher. I'm an educator. I'm passionate about teaching concepts that can make people better. And so we're going to do a workshop on the 4th called Creating Your Hedgehog Concept. And you have an opportunity to register for it. If you're here today, it's $49. If you're not here today, you can invite your friends. It's $69. And we are going to go to town and have people get the basics of their hedgehog concept. So it's something you can apply over the year and be supported with. I will be creating a group afterwards, but this is the first step if you want to have some traction from reading this book. I traditionally work with books that I think make a difference for people. And a lot of times when I ask people, oh, did you read the book? They might say yes. Did you like it? Oh, I loved it. What did you apply out of it? And they don't necessarily say that they've applied anything out of it. And I'm not accusing anybody on here of doing that, because I'm sure that's not you. So I like to create situations where people can apply it and get the value of it and have it make a real difference for the business that you're creating.
All right. That sounds good. I put the link if you're not good with QR codes, the link is right there in the chat. Okay, so let us jump into Q&A. Nancy, John asks, this was risky, but I have to move a non-performer to a consultant position with not much status and not much visibility, and let them choose to get off the bus. What do you think?
I think you should trust yourself. I think you should trust yourself. And I think you can do things like that in conversation, you know, of what would it take for them to build themselves back to something, if that's what you want. I would say trust yourself, though. That would be number one. And here's the thing. I think sometimes losing people is better than keeping people on who are having a detrimental effect to what it is that you're creating.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. All right, Katrina's asking, I would love to hear Nancy's thoughts on how we can apply good to great in developing BNI chapters.
I love that. I think that's fantastic. Well, I think that's something worth investigating. I mean, the one thing, I'm going to be writing an article. I've been talking to Steve about writing an article on how do you create good chapters for the long haul. And there are basics to BNI. BNI is very simple. And it would be good to look at it through the lens of this good to great book, because this thing about level 5 leadership, I mean, you need great leaders, but they have to be able to create a team. The best thing a president can do is make sure people on their team do their jobs, not make sure, but, make sure that they're doing their jobs. I mean, membership committees have a key element in there. And if they're not doing their job, that's kind of at the heart of the matter right there. But I think this simple concept of what is a BNI chapter could be a really great concept to look at, and how it does apply to BNI. Level 5 leadership, that could apply. Hedgehog concept, what is the actual point? What can BNI be best at? What are people in the chapter passionate about? And what drives the financial engine could be an interesting conversation for people within the chapter. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that, if you look at it in that way, those three parts of the hedgehog concept, what are we passionate about? What can we be the best at? And what drives the financial engine? Well, the need for referrals, and the reason that we're all in BNI is to make money, right? And so I think it's with all brand new leadership teams starting next week, by the way, first week of your new term. And by the way, thank you all for stepping up for leadership in your chapters. I think we really have to look at, what are the things that you can do this time around to make the chapter a little bit better. You don't have to make a huge sweeping changes. Nobody likes that. It's too much of a jarring effect, but like small little changes that you can implement, even if it starts with setting goals and following up on them, and making sure that attendance improves, and making your online meetings a little bit more engaging. All of those things are important. And I think that it's really up to us to figure out the best way to handle, because every chapter is a little bit different. To figure out what is the things that you can apply to this particular chapter that's going to make it great.
Yeah, I think that's very good, Steve. And one thing I want to just share, one thing that somebody in my chapter did, in the leadership, he passed out, thank you for closed business, like how much, revenue you contributed to the chapter. And he said, what if everybody could contribute $5,000 a month to the chapter? Mm-hmm. And I hadn't been oriented that way. I felt like, okay, I do good enough. Oh, that's fine, blah, blah, blah. And I started focusing on it, and I hit it. I did it. And it was because he brought that up, to even look at it from not like how much money are you making, and you should look at that completely, but also too, how much money are you contributing? And is there a goal of what you could do per month? Just a thought.
And I'll just mention, as I always do, please report your thank you for closed business. That goes next to everyone's name. And those of you who are tracking that very closely to see how much they're giving, we want to make sure that you're filling out those things so that that's kind of your giver's gain to the chapter, is to say, yes, I made X amount of money on this job, and now let's put that next to their name because they gave me that referral.
Yeah, I think that's super important.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Looks like we're at a Q&A questions. I'm just going to look at the chat real quick, see if I have anything here. Someone asked, will this be recorded? Oh, Nancy, will your workshop be recorded?
Yes, it will be recorded. Yes.
All right. And then will this webinar be recorded? Yes, this will be available 5 p.m. tonight. Give me till 6. I got some crazy stuff happening here this afternoon on our BNI Team USA YouTube channel. You could just Google that and you will find it. And someone asked if this deck will be available to share. Yep, we can definitely email that out. Send me an email, steve.tenuso@bni.com, and I will email you this slide deck. All right, Nancy, I think that's going to do it. Thanks for being on today. As always, this was another really great topic to cover, and it looks like based on the chat, people got a lot out of it today.
Good. Well, I'm glad about that. And please join me on next Wednesday. It would be great to get to know you better. And I'm really interested in the hedgehog concept. Like, how can we apply it as small business owners? It's very impactful. So that's all I want to say.
All right. So join us next week. We've got Jenny Butts and Gina Harold. By the way, there is a survey that's going to follow as soon as you log off. Please fill that out if you can. Much appreciated. And one of the things we do is we ask, what would you like to see in future webinars? And overwhelmingly, people want to know how can they add more members to their chapter, whether it's converting visitors to members or just getting them through the door. All those things, we're going to cover all of that next week. So please sign up for that one. It's in the email I sent this morning. And thank you very much. And we'll see you all next time. Take care. Oh, and give yourselves a CEU. I forgot. Whoops. There you go.